Hello, welcome to this video in civic education. We are going to be learning about corruption. Now, corruption, here's a pretty nice definition for it. It is the giving of money, so it's not just money, valuables or rendering of a service to someone so that you get a favor. And most of the times you find that corruption involves the abuse of public office and public resources for personal gain. So now, living in Zambia, in an African setup like this, you find that corruption is actually on a rampage. So especially like here in our country, if you look at the levels of corruption, it's actually on a rampage. Okay, people have to give something in order to get a job. Okay, they have to render services. Others, they have to do things like going out with the boss just to obtain favors. All those are corruptions. Okay, it's so that you get a favor. And the people that are in public office, they are the major culprits of this corruption, because they misuse public resources so that they make themselves rich. So if you hear a lot of cases on our previous presidents, on people that have served office, you hear that the DEC is looking for them, the Anti-Corruption Commission is looking for them. It's because of this same corruption that we're talking about. Okay, so corruption is very bad, and we're going to see why corruption is so bad, and it destroys the backbone of any country or nation. Okay, so the giving in of money, you are paying someone so that they can maybe add you to the list of the selected applicants when you're not even qualified. Okay, all those are forms of corruption. So let's look at the types of corruption. There are different forms of corruption, and you have this one: payment in kind. This is easy to understand. Okay, you pay for something. Here is where you are giving money now. Okay, payment in kind. Now, payment in kind, a good example for payment in kind is when you are rendering a service to someone. For example, the major culprits of payment in kind are mostly women. Okay, women find that someone offers their body as a form of payment. We call that payment in kind. Okay, they offer their body as a form of payment to avoid maybe paying money, or just to obtain any favor. They use their body to do that. Women mostly do that. Okay, so that is corruption as well. Okay, that is corruption, and it's not a good thing. We also have cash payments and receipts. Okay, cash payments and receipts. Okay, we also have giving of commissions. We also have kickback. We also have loans and services. All these are basically forms. Okay, they are basically forms of what? Of corruption. Okay, so that is what we need to know on the forms of corruption. So we have payment in kind, we have cash payments and receipts, just the use of money. Okay, maybe someone can form fake receipts. Okay, then kickback is a form of corruption where an individual or organization receives a portion of proceeds from transaction or projects in exchange of favors. You hear a lot of people say, here is where we can talk about things like bribe. Okay, bribe, this is a form of kickback. Okay, so a form of corruption where an individual or an organization receives a portion of proceeds from a transaction or project in exchange for favors. Okay, So kickbacks are often a secret and illegal, and usually they involve bribe. Okay, they involve bribe. Okay, among the other forms of corruption, and then also loans and advances. So these are just the types of what corruption, and you have to know them. Okay, now let's look at the categories of corruption. Okay, so we have petty corruption. This involves just those simple corruption that involve little money. For example, the bribes. Okay, uh, we normally use these terms. Nalali moshani, nalali moshinga, chikarako or something, or give me a share as well. Okay, maybe you go to the hospital, you find there's a huge line, you go and talk to the in charge, you give them something, they do things fast for you. Those little things that we do, those are corruption. Okay, it is widely practiced corruption at roadblocks, actually police officers. Okay, so I find that the major people that should be making sure that they bring down corruption, they are the main culprits that are involved in corruption. When we have grand corruption, this involves the huge amounts of money. It is usually practiced by high-ranking officials, especially institutions, where a lot of money is involved. Okay, this you'll find it in universities, you find it in the government. Okay, you find it in those big companies. Payment made for favors in awarding government contracts, public appointments, even the privatization of government-owned assets. Okay, so grant, just remember, it involves huge amounts of money. And then political corruption. This is very common also. The corruption associated with the electoral process. Okay, during especially during a lot of campaigns, there's a lot of corruption that goes through there. Okay, people donate money to win influence, they give money to the voters, they give chitenge materials and beer so that they can get the people's voters. So they distribute cash and material to influence voters. They give beer to influence the voters. Provision of services such as, so you find that during campaign, that's when the people want to act like they are working. Maybe they try to bring electricity to certain areas, water supply, road maintenance, just for them to get that support. All that is corruption. They should have done those things while they were in power. Okay. So now let's look at what causes corruption. Why are people so focused on corruption? What causes it? So there are social causes and economic causes, and some of the social causes are these. It's mostly the leaders. Okay, the leaders are the ones that usually bring about corruption because they have that power and people want to misuse that power. Okay, so leaders in key positions are not capable of inspiring and influencing the conduct of highest moral standards. Okay, also some people are just greedy and dishonest. That's their nature. Weak enforcement or absence of code of conduct. Okay, punishment for offenders is weak. They don't really punish people who commit these crimes, and sometimes it's because of just high poverty levels in the country. People resort to using corrupt means. Lack of employment also causes corruption. Large numbers of people compete for insufficient services, like few school places, few jobs. Okay, so there are many reasons that you can list under causes of corruption. Okay, poverty is one of them. In economic causes, sometimes the goods and services are lead to, for example, when we have a shortage of mini meal, people will start using corrupt means to get the mini meal. Okay, and also unequal distribution of wealth and resources, allocation of government loans and giving of tenders to some preferred individuals at the exclusion of others. Also low salaries and wages, especially the police officers. Sometimes their salaries lead to, they resort to making more money on roadblocks. Okay, so Those are just some of the causes. Then other causes: unnecessary long procedures, what we call red tape. Like for example, when you go to certain offices, maybe I'll give an example where we get our passports, find that the queue is very very long. Okay, sometimes unnecessarily long. You have to make a huge queue. Okay, people are lining up. So you find that people now start giving something to add to the people working, so that things just move fast. Okay, so some procedures that officers are expected to follow in workplaces may take long, making officers to make advantage of delays, and they do to make kickbacks, okay, for fast action. Lack of political will. Some government political will deals lead with corruption. Okay, lack of transparency and association. If the government lacks checks and balances, okay, so the government should have checks and balances. And what are these checks and balances? These are opposition parties or people outside the government that are busy looking uh, and making sure that the government is doing what they promise, the government is doing what is right. Okay, so they should offer checks and balances. But where there are no checks and balances, we call that lack of transparency and association, and the government will become corrupt. There is mismanagement and misuse of public funds, the abuse of power. When there's too much power, people often become corrupt. Okay, lack of independent judiciary. Also, you find that the judiciary, if it's controlled by the government, there will be corruption. The judiciary should be independent of the executive, which is the government. Okay, because the judiciary, this is where you have the chief justice, all the courts, even the police officers fall under judiciary. They should act independently of the executive. They have to even arrest government officials who are corrupt. But if the judiciary is being controlled by the government, you find that the whole thing becomes corrupt. Public reaction, how the public views corruption. Also, the public must be aware. Okay, they must be able to sense, here there is corruption, and then they report to the relevant officers. And also, if there is no press freedom, lack of press, the media plays a vital role in exposing cases. So if you notice there's a lot of corruption at your workplace, you can bring in maybe a media or a press, okay, media team. We have ZNPC, we have many of them, just to come and so they come and expose those things out there. So now, why is corruption bad? It makes those involved in it to become rich while others are suffering. This is where the term comes in. The richer keep on getting richer, and the poor will remain poor. It also enables those who pay bribes to benefit. Okay, it causes widespread of bitterness. People become bitter. Like here in Zambia, a lot of people are bitter because of corruption. And there is a term that is being used now. They say connections. Those are corruption. Okay, you need a connection for you to get a job. People become bitter. It distorts standards because it enables those without expertise to win contracts. Okay, it interferes with the enforcement of the law and the respect of law. It perpetuates human suffering through increasing poverty level. So those are the effects why corruption is very bad. Okay, poor countries keep getting poorer because of corruption. This is why Africa has actually, it's been difficult for Africa to develop because a lot of leaders are corrupt. So the impact of corruption on Zambia as a society, the law enforcement agencies, it's what happens if people are living in a corrupt society. For example, in Zambia, the citizens may take the law now in their own hands. Okay, you find that because of too much corruption, the citizens now are so bitter, such that they take the law in their own hands. Okay, they take vendettas and instant justice. This is why now you find that when someone commits a crime, the citizens themselves, they don't even take that person to the police. They beat that person, so they take the law in their hands. Okay, but if the law enforcers are perceived to be compromised, in other countries, people don't believe in police officers. You're involved in corruption or you're a thief, the public catches you and they deal with you. Okay, because now people have lost confidence because they know the government is corrupt. They know the police officers are corrupt. Okay. Also, what will happen to the judicial system? The court records go missing in the courts of law. Okay, the justice is denied to the poor. Okay, you find that poor people, most of them can't even afford lawyers, and but should be a way where the poor people also can get a lawyer. Okay, electoral system, due to malpractices, okay, people will stop voting now. Like, these things are just corrupt. Okay, people will avoid voting. Security of the nation, due to corruption, foreigners now acquire documents. So like here in Zambia, we have a lot of foreigners, and some of them you can't explain how they got in the country, or because of corruption. The economy mostly witnessed through money laundering services, tax evasion, exceptions. Okay, so all these are just the impact that corruption has caused here in Zambia. Okay, so there are many of them here. Let's look at some institutions that fight corruption in Zambia. We have this famous institution, the Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC. So this one, it has a slogan: promote integrity, say no to corruption. Okay, and this is enshrined in the general fight against corruption. This encourages everyone to join the fight by reporting. So we are supposed to report any corrupt practices seen. Okay, so methods used by the ACC in fighting corruption. So they use methods like prevention, by undertaking necessary effective measures to prevent corruption. Okay, it also makes sure that any work or methods or procedures prone to corruption are revised. Okay, so there's a commission prevention department under the ACC, which makes sure that it looks at all the procedures that can easily get corrupt, that they are revised and made strong. So it conducts managerial accountability workshops in public and private sectors to set standards. Also, they have to educate the community on the dangers of corruption. Okay, this is done by the Commission's Community Relations Department. These have the job to educate the people why corruption is bad and why, and what they should do to report that corruption. So they can use radio and television, and then public lectures, even workshops, just to teach the people. Okay, they are called the Commission's Community Relations Department, CRD. Investigations and prosecution. So they do investigation. They will investigate even a public official, and once you are found guilty, they prosecute you. Okay. Then you have the Zambia National Procurement, ZNPA. This was formed to control the procurement and regulate goods and services. Okay, it fights corruption by ensuring that procedures in procurement system are done in a transparent and accountable manner. Then the Parliament also, okay, fights against corruption. Its major role is to make laws, but it also refuses to sign appointments. Okay, so it analyzes the Auditor General's report with regard to appropriation and expenditure. So we have what we call the Public Accounts Committee charged with this responsibility. It's under Parliament. Okay, and also the Auditor General's office. It's a major responsibility to ensure that the public funds allocated by the Parliament are used for the intent. So the Auditor General's office, it makes sure that any funds that have been allocated by the Parliament, okay, are used for the intended purpose, Actually, even the CDF money that was released, a lot of people have misused it, but there is an auditor general's office that should make sure and follow up those issues. How was the money used? Okay, so it audits accounts relating to general revenue. It also audits the judicature accounts, okay, which are relating to stock and stores of government accounts and state-owned enterprises and corruption. Then you have the Investigators General's Office, who is called the Ombudsman. This one carries out investigations on a wide variety of complaints, which include corruption also. You also have the Anti-Money Laundering Unit, which falls under the Drug Enforcement Commission. Okay. The Act provides for disclosure of information on suspected personnel involved on money laundering. Okay, so we know most of these things. So other institutions that also fight corruption, we have the TIZ, Transparency International Zambia, National Movement Against Corruption, NAMAC, the media also for the Foundation for Democratic Processes. Okay, so some of the roles: identify the role of public officers, community, and youth in fighting corruption. What should we do now? Okay, so I'll start from below here. Take responsibility for one's action. If you see any corrupt process, you can report that. Okay. Some schools have been closed because people reported the corruption taking place there. So you take action. Encouraging and supporting free press, encouraging that there is freedom of speech. Okay. Demanding integrity and high sense of morality of public officers bearers. Okay. Supporting organizations that fight corruption. Reporting corrupt officers, such as police officers, you can report them. Okay. You can report them even to TIZ or SEC. Accessing information on procedures of how to deal with corruption cases. Changing attitudes from tolerance to total rejection of what? Corruption. So this is what we've been able to cover so far under corruption. So after you're done now, you need to go through some questions. The form of gratification which involves rendering of a service in return for a favor is called what? Okay, so it's called corruption. Okay, so Chitemene Musonda, an MP, giving Kitenge materials and t-shirts during campaign. What type of corruption is this? This is political corruption. Red tape is another cause of corruption. Give any cause of corruption which is also known as red tape. Remember red tape, what we said. Okay, red tape. You want an immediate action. Maybe you go at the clinic and there are a lot of people there, then you pay the in charge so that they can move you, they can do things faster. Okay, so that's type of corruption there. So there are many questions here that you can go through. You can ask for this material. I can send it to you just to make sure that you understand. That's how you study civic education. Okay, the Anti-Corruption Commission's general fight against corruption is enshrined in the slogan, which says, we've talked about the slogan, 3 social causes of corruption, we've talked about them. So for civic education, you study notes, you go through questions. That is how you understand. Okay, when you're not clear, you can also reach out to me. I'll be able to help you on that one. So there are a lot of questions that you can go through just to make sure that you've gotten the concept. Okay, what is money laundering? These are very good questions that you need to know how to answer. Okay, so we'll meet in our next video.